All right, let's jump right into it. We're going to be grading the Saints 2025 draft class. This draft class, I think how good the Saints did has been overlooked by like our second round pick and all of the attention that has gotten. And so we're going to start with the first pick, our first pick, which was the ninth overall pick. And let's just talk about what you know the fans were expecting. I think there's a lot of anticipation with this pick. I think there were a lot of eyes on this pick for months, really, especially weeks leading up to this draft night. And I think the Saints went in a direction that we as fans weren't expecting, or at least it wasn't on the top of our list. I think that I had said that this year was one of the first years in a while where I really don't know what we were going to do. Um, and so there were a lot of different routes to go. On offense, there were quite a few options. On defense, I think there were quite a few people that we as fans liked, and I think that the organization themselves liked. You know, before this pick was made, I think a lot of guys were expecting Shedeur Sanders, who we'll talk about. He fell to the fifth round, and Jackson Dart, who was drafted later in the first round. Tyler Warren, who was 14th to the Colts. Um, Jalen Walker went to the Falcons. We'll see him twice a year. At 15, Mikael Williams, there were options. But there were also a lot of good tackles, a lot of good guards, a lot of good offensive linemen, and they're starting to get taken. And look, Kelvin Banks Jr., let's talk about him. I think that, obviously, you saw my reaction. I initially said that I know he's a great player. I know he's a great tackle. I know that he's one of the best linemen in this draft, and that he deserves to go top 10. You know what I mean? He is a great prospect. It's just not the route I was expecting the Saints to go, right? And I think a lot can say the same. But this is where you got to trust in the team. They know more than we do. And I'll say this. We bring in a guy, Kellen Moore, to be our head coach. He was the coordinator for the Eagles who won the Super Bowl. And the Eagles, offensively and defensively, probably the best team on paper on both sides of the ball. But we can all agree that their offensive success started with their offensive line. It started with the trenches, right? And so I trust Kellen Moore, and I trust the years that have gone into building this offensive line to be what it is right now. Obviously, we lose Ryan Ramczyk to retirement, really to injury. And that hurts. He was a really valuable asset to our team. But, I look at it to see Eric McCoy at center, who, when healthy, is probably the most important piece of our offense. You got Kelvin Banks Jr. at left tackle, who comes from the SEC. In his last 2 seasons of college, he allowed just 1 sack in each of those seasons. One of the best offensive linemen in college football in this draft class. And then on the other side of him, you got right tackle Huaga, which is the position that he got to play in college. And so I think that helps a lot to bring him back to what he played in college, to have Kelvin Banks Jr. protecting the blind side, Eric McCoy at center, and then my assumption would be Trevor Penning and Ruiz at the guard positions. And obviously, there's some work, there's some development to be made for really all of these guys. But on paper, I love how this looks. On paper, we could really call this the trenches, and really, create a challenge for the opposing defensive lines that we'll face. And we bring in a guy like Kellen Moore who is all about the trenches. And so I'm all for this. And if the quarterback situation doesn't work this season, I think next year we bring in a guy and we have him set up for success. We have all the protection that he needs. And it makes it easier for what could be better talent next year than there was this year at quarterback anyways. So for this first pick, our 9th overall pick, Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas, I would probably grade this at the time B-, but I would say at the lowest, a B+, probably an A- of a pick. And of course, with all these picks, we'll have to see how they pan out in the NFL with the Saints and how the picks that went after them pan out in the NFL with their teams. We got to give it a couple years before you can really fully grade, but right now I would say that's probably A minus, maybe B plus pick. Okay, now we move on to our second round pick, which is the most controversial pick of our draft. A controversial pick in just the NFL world in general, with Shedeur still being on the board at this point. He then goes on to fall another 3 rounds, and so that's another story. But we'll talk about Tyler Shough, quarterback out of Louisville. He was at Texas Tech before that. Really, it starts with the Saints quarterback situation. Derek Carr, it's kind of unknown all the full details of what's going on with Carr, his relationship with the Saints. Does he want to play for the Saints? Did he actually want to be traded earlier on? Is he healthy, and will he be able to play week 1? I'm guessing not, based off of what he says is an injury that he is going through with his shoulder. And so if he's not, it comes down to Tyler Shough or Spencer Rattler. And so who's it going to be? They're going to battle it out, I'm assuming, and we'll see who that will be. But to talk about this pick, I think the Saints had to go quarterback first or second round at the latest. If they did, when this name was announced, it was a curveball. However, the Saints were in talks with Tyler Shough, and I didn't see it as a complete curveball because I knew that they liked him. Now, this guy, he's a bit older. He's 26 years old, and so this is the oldest quarterback we've seen drafted into the NFL in a while, I feel like, and is the talent there for it to be worth it? Obviously, there's a lot of memes going on about this and some of his throws, some of his plays that have been horrendous. Really, I think this is a pick that we have to let play out. He's confident, he's poised. He says that he'll die on the field for the Saints. He has shown a lot of respect for guys like Archie Manning, Drew Brees, when talking about what jersey number he's going to wear. And so we've seen that he's had good conversations with the organization. He went out to dinner, and they were just amazed by his humble attitude and things like that, his character. And so from what we've seen off the field, I think there's a lot to like about this guy. Obviously, he has a lot more experience than most guys do coming into the NFL. But has what we've seen been enough to get us excited for him potentially starting to start the season with the Saints? I would say probably not yet. But I think it's something that as the months go by and he battles it out, we will find out more. And like I said earlier, this season, if it doesn't work out with him or Rattler, this pick could be a blessing in disguise, just based off the fact that we get to see something different. That's not Derek Carr this year, and we get to bring in a guy next year if it doesn't work out, and set him up for success with a good, healthy offensive line. And so, we'll see how it pans out. But I'm not as upset about this pick as I think a lot of Saints fans really were. So with that, I would grade this pick. Look, we got to be honest here. We can't overhype it. I think this is a hard pick to overhype. But I would probably grade him a C minus because it is a position that we needed. Not taking Shedeur confused a lot of people, including me at the time, but to see him continue to fall and then later find out what was going on with Shedeur, I think it makes this pick look a little bit better. But only time will tell how great of a pick this will be. Like I said, it could be a blessing in disguise because if it doesn't work out this year, we got to build the line, build the trenches, and next year we bring in a guy that will be set up for success with our offensive weapons and then with our offensive line. Now we get into what I think was our first steal of the draft. In the fourth round, 112th pick, we get Danny Stutzman, linebacker out of Oklahoma. He's 6'4", 376 career tackles with the Sooners. In 2024, he started 12 games at middle linebacker. He led the team with 109 tackles, 8 of those for loss, and a sack. He registered double-digit tackles 4 times, including a career-high 19 tackles at Missouri. And he earned all SEC first team honors. Look, this pick, I immediately got to watching film. He's electric. He brings an energy that I think the Saints need, and he gets to play and learn alongside Demario Davis, one of the NFL's best, and Pete Werner, who I still think has a lot of potential. And obviously, he comes out of Ohio State, and so I think that adds a big bonus to our linebacker core. A needed one, an underrated need for us was linebacker, in my opinion. And so I think that this probably was the best pick that we could have made at this point in the draft. For that reason, I think Danny Stutzman, to grade it, I would grade this like an A minus of a pick. I'm excited about the energy that he brings, the hype that he brings. He's ready to get going, and I think the Saints have hit on the linebacker positions a few times. We've had to let a couple guys go, like Zach Bond, for example, who we see balling out with the Eagles, one of their most important assets on their defense for that Super Bowl winning team. We bring in a guy like Stutzman. I think it's only going to give us more depth and help us out. And I can see him winning out that second linebacker spot, really. And so we'll see how that plays out. But again, I think this is our first steal of a pick. I think it's incredible value at this point in the draft in the fourth round. And so I would give it, like I said, probably an A minus of a pick, of a grade. And another fourth round pick, Quincy Riley, Louisville's cornerback, 131st overall. Another guy from Louisville. This pick, I was excited about when we drafted him. Again, I watched some of his tape. He's 5'11", so he's not the tallest, but about around that height that a defensive back typically is. He had 112 solo tackles, 15 interceptions, and 40 passes defended in his college career. In 2024, he appeared in 10 games. He made 8 starts, but 3 of those games he did miss with an injury. He finished the season 33 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and he tied the team with 2 interceptions. He tied the team lead with 2 interceptions, and 9th nationally with 15 passes defended. And so, pretty impressive stats. He's athletic. He's 195 pounds, 5'11", kind of that ideal build of a defensive back, of a cornerback. Again, another position that the Saints need help with. With the transition of Adebo, obviously mid-season last year, we lost Lattimore. And so the cornerback position is kind of something the Saints got to figure out. We've got some guys there that give us a lot of reasons to like them. But I think it's a position that you really need a lot of depth at. I think the Saints have done well over the last few years with this position, and so I trust this pick. I like him. I like the tape. I like the athleticism that he brings. And I like his career stats in college. And so excited to see how this one pans out. I would easily grade this one at least a B minus. I'll probably say it's around that B plus range. I think it's a good pick. I'm excited about this one. Now, I think this was the biggest steal in the draft for the Saints this year. Like I said when I was talking about Danny Stutzman, I think the Saints love to find those steals in those middle rounds. This one comes in the 6th round. Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. I think that Neal will either drive Kendre Miller out, or he'll be the reason that Kendre Miller steps it up. Either way, I think the Saints have had the most success on offense when they have 2 really good running backs splitting carries. We saw it with Mark Ingram and Kamara. We've seen it in the past many times with some of these amazing running back duos that the Saints have had. And look, Devin Neal, there's nothing not to like about him. He's the all-time leading rusher in Kansas history. He's the first to post 3 consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons. He finished his career with 4,343 rushing yards and 53 total touchdowns. He's explosive. He's elusive. He's versatile. Like I said, there's nothing not to like about this kid, and I'm excited because I think that him and Kamara will be that next duo, that next electric duo, at least over the next couple of seasons. I think we're going to be hearing his name a lot, and I think it's really going to solidify something for us at the running back position. And this is a 6th round pick. This isn't a second, a third, a first, a 4th round pick. This is a 6th round, 184th overall pick, and it's probably the pick that I'm most excited about in our draft class this year. So that says a lot about Devin Neal's name. It says a lot about the caliber of a player he is. He's 5'11", 213 pounds. He's buff, he's big, he's that kind of ideal build for a running back. And I'm excited to see what he does alongside Kamara and what he'll learn from Kamara. Now, to grade it, I would grade this an A+ of a pick. A- at worst, but I think it's in that A range. Obviously, this running back draft class was deep. There was a lot of talent. And so, yes, there's guys like Genty, like Amar and Hampton, Scadabo, Trayvon Henderson, all those guys. But I think there's a lot of depth, and I think there's a lot of value in this pick. Like I said, it's probably the pick I'm most excited about for the Saints, and it comes in the 6th round, so that says a lot about him, the player that he is, the energy that he brings. Kansas let us know he's a steal, and I know that he will be, so I'm excited to see how this one pans out. Now on to our first of 2 7th round picks, Maliki Matavo. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I never really found out how to pronounce his name, but we get him in the 7th round, 248th overall pick, tight end out of UCLA. Look, I won't spend too much time on it, but tight end is a position that I think was needed. I think potentially we could have got tight end 9th overall with Tyler Warren, who fell a few picks later, the 14th to the Colts. I think that was a great pick for them. I think it would have been a great pick for us. Tight end, of course, we'll see what happens with Taysom Hill with his injury, if he's able to play really with us ever again. Hopefully, yes. But obviously we have Juwan Johnson, an underrated tight end, really physical, big tight end, and I love, what he's been able to do for us with how much we've been targeting him over the last few years. But I think bringing in a tight end for some depth, I think there's a lot of value in that. I think that's a big pick. So like I said, 248th overall. He had his college career capped off with 74 catches, 998 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was recognized on the John Mackey Award and the Polynesian Player of the Year watch list for 2024. In 2024, he played 11 games, starting 8. He led UCLA with 41 receptions, 506 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and he registered at least 1 catch in each game that he played. He's physical. He's 6'8", ridiculous height, 263 pounds. Comes from UCLA. It's a great pick. For being in the 7th round. I would love to see him develop into our guy. Obviously, you root for all the guys that we draft, especially these guys drafted later on. You want to be able to say that you got some steals, and I think he has the potential to be considered a steal. We'll see how much playtime he gets, but again, 6'8", 263 pounds is ridiculous. So I'm excited to see how that pans out. I'll grade that. Probably a B of a pick. I like it, and we'll see what he's able to do in black and gold. And on to Fadil Diggs, Syracuse edge, 7th round pick, 254. Look, he's 6'4", 257. He's listed as 6'5" some places. So I would say 6'5", 257 pounds. Out of Syracuse, he transferred from A&M. He started all 12 regular season games for the Orange. And over his college career, 120 career tackles, 32.5 tackles for loss, and 15.5 sacks across his time at both A&M and Syracuse. He's physical, he's big, he's built, and that's what you want in a defensive lineman. Not only that, but I think this is a good depth pick. I think we want to beef up that defensive line, especially... we don't know the future of our line. There's some age on it, and so I think this helps. I think it's always good to get depth and stack at certain positions, and this is a need for us. I like his physicality, his availability, which is the best ability, shows in playing 12 games, all 12 games in his last season, and so I love this pick. I think I would grade this probably B plus A minus even of a pick. I love it, and so with that, we'll talk about the entirety of the draft, overall grade of the draft. Like I said, this draft class initially will be overlooked by the controversy of our first couple picks. I won't say our first pick is controversial because it's talent, but in the fact that a lot of people expected us to get Dart or Sanders at 9th overall. We didn't. He falls to 5, so that story plays out. But then Tyler Shough, we get an older quarterback, really old quarterback for a rookie, a guy that could be 30 at the end of his rookie contract. He's experienced, but is the tape, has he proven that he can be our guy right away with Carr not being able to play? Will it be Rattler? Will he be able to beat out Rattler? We don't know. And so we'll see how that pans out. But overall, I love the picks we've made, and I think we've got some steals, especially in Danny Stutzman and Devin Neal in that 4th and in that 6th round. And so I'm excited about this draft. I'm excited to see how it pans out, and I'm most excited about, yes, Devin Neal, but also the trenches, the offensive line, and Kellen Moore being able to work with that, being the quarterback guru that he is. I think over this next couple of years, it'll take some patience, but I think we'll see results of this draft and the years of kind of building this offensive line to be what it is now. And when we find our quarterback, I think if we can stay healthy at the line and continue to build on our weapons offensively, we'll be setting up whoever is under center for success. But anyways, with that, I hope you guys enjoy this grade of our draft class 2025. Be sure to stay tuned for more episodes like this. And let me know down below what you guys want me to cover. And I'll be ready to talk with you guys about whatever it is that you guys want to hear. I'll be willing to bring some of you guys on to talk with you guys live. Stay tuned for Instagram lives. All kinds of things. Saints Island on Instagram. Please stay tuned because that's where all the content goes. That's where a lot of the focus is. And I'll be putting out content for you guys daily. So stay tuned and peace.